Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to another edition of Advanced Bass Fishing, and really appreciate you guys coming by the channel to check it out. And guys, today I want to have one of our other videos, or a little bit shorter format videos. It's like in between a long video and not quite as short as a short video, but I wanted to take a chance to do some of these little shorter videos to sort of go over some important parts of bass fishing that will help you seasonally. As far as like right now, I want to try to do these shorter videos in a timely fashion, so it's something you can take out on the water like right when the videos come out to catch fish. So today I want to talk about some details and really some advanced theory on boat dock fishing, because boat docks are some of the greatest places to catch fish this time of year that there is. There's a lot of complexities behind boat docks, so I want to get into that in today's video. Also, guys, just a quick reminder, a couple quick housekeeping tips. Just want to invite everybody here on Advanced Bass Fishing. If you're interested in supporting the content here, best thing you can do is just go into my video description of this video and use and bookmark that Tackle Warehouse link for your fishing tackle purchases. I've talked about it before, guys. The channel gets a small percentage. If you buy a bag of worms or something, the channel gets a little percentage of the commission on it. So it's a good way to support the channel, and really appreciate that. Okay, guys, boat docks, one of the necessities of bass fishing. If you're going to be a well-rounded bass angler, you're going to have to learn how to fish docks. I mean, unless you live and the only place you fish are on lakes that don't have docks, yeah, maybe not so much. But if you fish most of the lakes across the country, or especially if you do any type of local tournament fishing or whatever, you're going to have to fish docks because they are really good in the summertime of the year. And they're all different. It's like every boat dock out there is sort of unique to itself on how it's set up and where it's positioned at in relationship to water clarity, and if the dock's a pier dock or a floating dock, if it's a marina dock, if it's a residential dock, bank structures behind it, a lot of different stuff. So sort of want to give you guys a foundation on that you can build on, because we could talk for hours about docks, but I want to sort of hit the highlights in today's video about some things you need to look for with it. So first of all, I want to talk about the two primary type of docks. You have the piling docks that are built with like those telephone poles. Now, some lakes in the country, that's all they have. Like all the TVA lakes, like Lake Norman has piling docks. Most of the tidal rivers, if you guys fish on tidal rivers, you've got piling docks. You know, a wide percentage of the lakes across the country have piling docks, and the fish will position on piling docks a lot different than they will any other place. Now, the thing about piling docks that you have to remember that's a little bit different than floating docks is that piling docks, the bass are usually on the bottom on these docks. Floating docks, they can be on the bottom or they can be suspended, but for some reason, you don't catch too many bass suspended around piling docks. Not to say that you can't, but primarily on a piling dock, the fish are on the bottom. Therefore, the depth that you fish on a piling dock is relative to your water clarity. It's relative to your water clarity and also relative to the current flow, because some of these lakes out there that have piling docks that are on river type lakes, they have some considerable current coming through there. I fished at Lake Chickamauga before on piling docks, and you've got a bunch of current coming through there at times, depending upon how hard they're pulling the water. So given that, here's some basic fundamentals to remember when you're fishing piling docks. Number one, your lure selections can be limited to your bottom bouncing lures. Some of my favorite lures for piling docks, depending upon the time of the year, are shaky heads, wacky rigs are going to be really good, Texas rig worms, Texas rig creature baits, and jigs. Those are going to be the primary things. Now, occasionally in the springtime of the year, you might be able to throw like a fluke or floating worm up there shallow and catch one on it. But for the most part, those bottom bouncing lures are going to be the way, that you want to go about catching it. Next consideration is your water visibility. Your water visibility is going to tell you which pilings on a dock is going to be more productive. Now, depending upon the angle of the bank, sometimes you can have some pilings up against the bank that may be in 2 foot of water. And if it's a sharp bank, some of those pilings out off the end of the dock can be in 15 foot of water. You're going to find that those deeper pilings, if you have a dock that's set on a steep bank, the fish are almost always going to be up on the shallower pilings, regardless of the water clarity. So on a steeper bank, about half the dock is usually unproductive. But if you have a piling dock that's on a real flat bank, every single piling can be productive, because some of the best docks that I've ever fished before, excuse me guys, I'm a little congested this morning here. If you have some docks that are on those flat banks, these are some of my favorite type of docks to fish in the summertime of the year. And literally, those fish can be on the shallow pilings, or they could be out off the end of them in 2 or 3 or 4 foot of water if it's on a flat bank. So the bank angle has a lot to do with how these fish are positioned around it. The next thing to remember in the summertime of the year is shade is everything. These fish are 99% of the time going to be in that shade, with the exception is if you have some type of cover on the outside of the dock. Now, sometimes people will throw brush piles out there for crappie fishing on the outside of the docks. Those are good structures too. You can catch fish in those piles. They don't have to have sun or shade on them. But for the most part, when you're fishing a piling dock, you definitely want to key in on that shade. And you always, for the most part, want to try to get a little bit further back into that dock, because those piling docks, sometimes they're that far off the water and sometimes they're 3 or 4 foot off the water. But normally your better fish are going to be a little bit farther back in there. For me, the sweet spot on a piling dock is if you've got, say, a residential piling dock with a boat slip in it, where the front of that boat slip intersects the front of the dock there, the walkway area on it, that is going to be a key sweet spot. Anywhere where that walkway intersects the dock, close to where that boat slip is where the big ones usually position at most all of the time. Now, they move according through the day, because if you pull up to a piling dock at 9 o'clock in the morning, it's going to have the shade thrown off at a certain angle. And if you come back there at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that area could be in the sun and your different part of your dock is going to be in the shade. So always move around and concentrate in the shade area. Another thing about piling docks that I found to be really productive is that when you're flipping and pitching or skipping or whatever your bait is in there, go with a light sinker or a light weight. I have never done very good on piling docks if I'm flipping some type of a heavy bait in there. So you want to use, anywhere between like a weightless bait to like maybe a 1/16 or an 1/8 or 3/16 ounce is going to get you a lot more bites. Probably my favorite, if you guys gave me the piling dock bait that I have done the best on, I've caught more bass on than anywhere, is I've taken a soft plastic stick bait like a Senko and put a 1/16 of an ounce sinker on it and put it on like a 15-pound test fluorocarbon line and just methodically pitch that light weightless stick bait or Senko in and around those pilings. Guys, that is my confidence bait. If I could leave you with anything in this video, that's what you want to do. Like a green pumpkin or watermelon, or if the water's dirty, go to a black or June bug or something. But that 1/16 of an ounce weight is critical. And a lot of people don't even have a 1/16 ounce weight. But do your favor, I'll link all the stuff in the video description, guys. The stuff I suggest. I'll also link some of those where you can get those 1/16 of an ounce sinkers. That 1/16 of an ounce bullet weight is a critical thing around summertime boat docks. It just so productive with that. Now, the other two baits that I really do good on is some type of a finesse jig, usually like a 1/4 ounce to 3/8 ounce finesse jig, usually a green pumpkin. I usually pair it up with like a Zoom Super Chunk Junior, and I'll pitch it in and around the dock too. Now, I really like the jig if the water's a little bit clearer. The Senko or the soft plastic stick bait will work in a wide range of colors. It'll work in anywhere between 1 foot visibility up to 5 foot visibility. But the finesse jig, you're going to find out that it works better if that water visibility is sort of in that 3 to 5 foot range a little bit. And that's a good bait to throw all year long. They'll bite a finesse jig all year. The other two baits, again, are going to be your shaky head and your wacky rigs. Wacky rigs are going to be your #1 technique in the springtime of the year, skipping them up underneath those walkways and in those dark places. And the shaky head is really good, especially if you have a lake that has a lot of spotted bass in it. Like all you guys that fish the Alabama lakes, like Logan Martin, Lay Lake, Neely Henry, all that stuff have the piling docks in it. Shaky head on a light head is going to be a really good technique to throw. I'll be right back, guys. I got a quick tip. I guess Kim just texted me. I got to get with her. I'll be right back. Okay, guys, sorry about that little delay there. Another thing I'll give you guys a tip and advice in is, I'm just talking a little bit about some of my favorite type of areas I've done the best in this time of year. If you guys have a lake that has, again, that has the piling docks in it, here's one thing you want to try that gets overlooked a lot. Go back in, like to the back end of the cove or the back end of the creek where the water's super hot, the water's dirty, and the water's really shallow. And if you go back in there on those piling docks, back in that stagnant, hot, shallow water in the summertime, where you've got one of those docks that you may only have like that much depth on the pilings on the very deepest part of the dock, guys, there is always usually a big fish on that. You may not catch a lot of fish, but for whatever reason, there's usually always some lone rogue big ones back in those nasty, super shallow docks in that really hot water. It's going to be, definitely worth your time to try that. I'll tell you right now, guys, Missouri, we have a ton of docks here. Lake of the Ozarks, Grand Lake. I fished docks my whole life. We have floating docks here in Missouri. All you guys that have piling docks, I would far more rather fish piling docks. I think piling docks are better docks to fish than floating docks. They're easier to fish. I think the fish use them, more throughout the year. They're not as hard to fish as far as scratching your boat up. So if you do have a lake that you're on piling docks, consider yourself fortunate. And also, don't hesitate to, sorry about the plane there, guys, flying over, their helicopter. Also, guys, don't hesitate to fish all the other structures around that dock. Like, another good way to catch them around those piling docks is right against the bank. A lot of times there can be a seawall or riprap. Sometimes early in the morning you can take a popper this time of year and throw that popper against the shallow riprap and catch them. And again, finally, don't ever overlook any crappie piles around it. One final thing about a piling dock is a jerkbait can be pretty good. You can take that jerkbait sometimes and pitch it down any type of shade line on those piling docks. That can be pretty productive. Okay, now let's talk about floating docks, the residential and the commercial floating docks. Now the floating docks there's probably more floating docks across the country than there are piling docks in most lakes. And depending upon the lake that you're fishing, there could be a lot of them or just a few here and there. Here's some tips and advice for fishing floating docks in the summertime of the year. There's two different type of docks you want to concentrate on. Actually three, but there's two primary ones. The first one are your deeper docks. The deeper docks that are like the marina docks, or those docks that are out on the main lake that are like over 15 or 20 foot of water. If you have a dock that is the outside of the dock is in 15 to 20 foot of water or in that range, a little bit deeper water, those fish are going to suspend around that dock. And there's not a better bait in August and September than a jerk bait. Take that jerk bait and just cast it around the shade lines, around the sides of the docks and around the corners. If there's one in there, it'll pull them out of there. Another really good bait that I caught them on is a mouse-colored spinnerbait. War Eagle makes the spinnerbait it's a mouse-colored. And that War Eagle spinnerbait, again, I'll link all this stuff in the description, but for some reason, that mouse-colored War Eagle spinnerbait, slow rolled along the side of those docks is really good if you have water visibility sort of in that less than 3 foot range. Actually less than 2 foot range. You got water visibility about like that. You can slow roll that War Eagle down the side of there and they bite it really good. Chatterbait works really good for suspended fish. And if you have dirty water, like that water visibility is muddy, a big square bill crankbait or even swimming a jig down the side of those floating docks are going to be really good. Now, if you got clear water in the summertime of the year, that is when I go to a finesse jig. Hard to beat a finesse jig on floating docks in the summertime if you have cleaner water. And they can be anywhere. The best places on a floating dock, if you have clear water, are going to be on, if it's a marina type dock, they're going to be on the shallower stalls, like in less than 15 foot of water. If it's a residential dock, they're going to be in the middle of the stalls. So take that finesse jig, and doesn't matter if there's a boat in the slip or not, try to pitch it as far back up in there as you can, as far up the boat slip as you can. Free spool it down and just work that finesse jig in that boat slip. That's where most of those key fish are going to be. Also, if you've got clear water and a little bit deeper docks, you can catch them on a jigging spoon in those boat slips. You can do the same thing. Take a jigging spoon, pitch it, up in that boat slip, free spool it, let it go down 5 or 10 feet, jerk it, let it go down a little bit more, jerk it. Catch a lot of fish doing that. Otherwise, the key places on a floating dock in the summertime of the year are going to be around any man-made brush. This is going to be key for you. Most man-made docks, if you get into an area that's got a row of docks, there's always 2 or 3 docks about guys that crappie fish there, like we talked about on the piling docks. Pay close attention to any like rod holders on the docks. If they have rod holders on the docks, more than likely they're going to have some type of a brush, planted around there. And the best technique for that, and a lot of times you can find brush even if you can't see it on your electronics, is take like a 8 or 9 inch Texas rig curly tail plastic worm like that Zoom Old Monster on like a 1/4 ounce slip sinker, and just cast it around the outside parts of the dock. Like cast it 5 or 6 feet off the end of the dock, 5 or 6 feet off the sides. Most of those brush piles are going to be 5 to 10 feet out away from the dock. So you just sort of have to fan cast all around them. That's probably the best way to catch the big ones on a floating dock in the summertime of the year, is on a bigger worm around any brush that's in that particular area. Most of those fish that you're going to catch on the finesse jig and the jerk bait and the spinner bait are going to be not small bass, but they're going to be on the smaller side. They're going to average 1.5 pounds to maybe 2 1/4 for the most part, but your bigger ones are definitely going to come on that Texas rig around any cover. And the same thing in the summer, like with the floating docks, you can catch them on top water up closer to the bank behind the docks. And also, you don't ever want to overlook the walkway area. Another good way I've caught them in the summertime of year is that Megabass sleeper gill. Pulling off here. This thing has been really effective for me. I'll take this thing and I'll skip it up underneath the walkways, keep my rod tip high, keep that thing just under the surface, because in the summertime of the year, there's a lot of bass that hang around boat docks. If you ever walk around a boat dock in the summertime on a floating boat dock, you can see bluegills on almost every dock out there. And this little sleeper gill reeled next to that dock, under those walkways, just up under the surface. I've caught some good ones doing that with it. But anyway, guys, that's just a very quick tutorial on boat docks. We didn't even touch the surface with them. Sort of give you guys sort of a little foundation to begin with. We'll do more stuff on docks later on. I may do, one of the advanced bass fishing, one of the long videos on it at some point, and we'll keep you guys updated. And thanks for tuning in. We'll see y'all later.